Stellar Diplomacy Ambassador Kieran Voss gazed through the viewport as his shuttle descended toward the crystalline surface of Lumaris. Prismatic light scattered across jagged mountain ranges that seemed to pulse with inner radiance. After 3 decades of bitter conflict between humans and the energy-based Luminari, he was the first diplomat permitted to set foot on their homeworld. "Final approach, Ambassador," his pilot announced. "Remember, atmosphere is breathable but thin. The gravitational difference might make you lightheaded." Kieran nodded, straightening his midnight blue diplomatic uniform. "I've trained for this. Mira, the Interstellar Coalition is counting on us to end this war." The shuttle landed with a gentle thud on a platform of translucent crystal that seemed to hover above a vast valley of pulsating light formations. A delegation awaited him. Tall, slender figures whose skin shimmered with an inner luminescence. Their features both humanoid and alien simultaneously. "They're more beautiful than the briefing suggested," Kieran whispered. At the center stood a figure whose radiance outshone the others. Queen Nayara of the Luminari Sovereign Collective moved with liquid grace as Kieran approached and bowed deeply. "Your Radiance," he said, using their formal greeting. "I bring peaceful intentions from Earth and the Coalition." Nayara's voice resonated with harmonic overtones. "Ambassador Voss, you are either exceptionally brave or foolish to come alone to our world." "Perhaps a measure of both," he replied with a slight smile. "But mostly hopeful." Her iridescent eyes narrowed. "Humans have sought our energy crystals for generations. Why should I believe your intentions differ? Because I come with no demands, only proposals for mutual benefit. And I have submitted myself to your world, your customs, and your judgment." The Queen gestured for him to follow. They entered a vast chamber whose walls seemed alive with flowing energy currents. Other Luminari Council members awaited, their expressions unreadable. "You understand," Nayara said, "that as beings of energy consciousness, we perceive deception differently than humans. Thoughts have texture to us," Kieran nodded. "I'm aware. And I consent to whatever verification methods your customs require." Something like surprise flickered across Nayara's luminous features. "Most humans fear our mental probing. I have nothing to hide. We shall see." Her voice cooled. "You will reside in the diplomatic quarter while we prepare the trials." "Trials?" "A series of psychic challenges. Standard procedure for all who seek audience with our collective." Her lips curved slightly. "Though few humans have volunteered. Beginning tomorrow, I will personally evaluate your responses." As they parted, Nayara's advisor whispered, "Is it wise to conduct the trials yourself, your Radiance?" "I trust no one else to determine if humans are finally ready for true contact," she replied, watching Kieran's retreating form with curious intensity. "There is something different about this one. Trials of truth." The chamber of trials hummed with energy that made Kieran's skin tingle. Crystalline walls pulsed with gentle light as Queen Nayara entered, her flowing robes shimmering with each graceful movement. "Are you prepared, Ambassador?" she asked, gesturing to a circular platform at the center. Kieran stepped forward, his heart racing despite his calm exterior. "I am. The process is simple," Nayara explained, her voice melodic yet formal. "I will project scenarios into your mind. Your genuine reactions will be visible to me, and if I pass these tests, then we negotiate." She approached, stopping mere inches away. "Close your eyes," Kieran complied. The air between them seemed to compress as Nayara raised her hands near his temples without touching him. Suddenly his mind filled with vivid images. He stood in a Luminari crystal mine, Earth officials urging him to secretly negotiate exclusive mining rights while publicly discussing peace. "What would you do?" Nayara's voice echoed in his consciousness. "Refuse," Kieran answered without hesitation. "Deception undermines lasting peace. I would inform both sides of the request." The scene shifted. Now he witnessed Luminari children being mistreated by human colonists on a border world. Anger flared within him, genuine and unfiltered. "Interesting," Nayara murmured. "You feel protective of our young." Injustice is injustice, regardless of species. Each scenario grew more complex. Hours passed as Nayara probed deeper than any human had allowed before. During the 7th trial, something unexpected happened. As Kieran focused on a particularly difficult moral dilemma, his mind instinctively reached back toward hers. Nayara gasped, severing the connection immediately. "What happened?" he asked, disoriented. "You reflected." Her voice contained astonishment. "No human has ever." She composed herself. "Enough for today." Later, in her private chambers, Nayara's advisor studied her troubled expression. His responses were genuine, she admitted. No deception detected. Yet you seem disturbed, Your Radiance. Nayara turned to the window, watching twin moons rise over the crystal forests. During our final connection, I felt him, not just his thoughts, but his essence. Her fingers trembled slightly. There was unexpected depth there. Compassion I didn't anticipate. Perhaps a calculated facade. No, she shook her head. The connection was too raw, too unguarded. A pause. Prepare the second phase of trials. Something more challenging. Meanwhile, Kieran sat alone in his quarters, still processing the lingering sensation of Nayara's consciousness brushing against his. Despite her formal coldness, he had sensed something beneath. Loneliness, perhaps. The weight of leadership. And something else. Something that resonated with his own unspoken feelings. Remarkable, he whispered to himself, remembering the brilliant complexity of her mind. For the first time, he found himself anticipating tomorrow's trials for reasons entirely unrelated to his diplomatic mission. Forbidden Resonance, 2 weeks of daily trials had established an unexpected rhythm. Each morning, Kieran would arrive at the chamber, and each day Nayara's formal distance had subtly diminished. Today, however, their session was interrupted by a thunderous boom that shook the Crystal Palace. What was that? Kieran asked as they broke mental contact. Nayara's communicator chimed with urgent tones. Her expression transformed to alarm as she listened. The northern crystal formation has destabilized. There are children at the learning center nearby. Without hesitation, she rushed from the chamber. Kieran followed, ignoring protocol entirely. They emerged onto a terrace overlooking a valley where massive crystal structures were collapsing, releasing waves of energy. Nayara's hands moved in complex patterns, attempting to stabilize the energy flow from afar. I need to get closer, she said, her voice strained. Let me help, Kieran offered. The energy surges would kill you instantly. Then guide me to evacuate the learning center while you handle the crystals. Surprise flickered across her luminous features, but she nodded and quickly explained the safest route. Kieran raced down the pathways, the thin atmosphere burning his lungs. When he reached the center, young Luminari huddled in fear, their small forms pulsing with panicked light. I'm here to help, he assured them, using the few phrases of their language he had learned. Despite initial fear, they followed him along the evacuation route as crystal shards rained down around them. From her position, Nayara watched in astonishment as the human ambassador led the last child to safety before a massive formation collapsed. Only then did she fully unleash her power, channeling the wild energy back into the planet's core, stabilizing the region. Hours later, when the crisis had passed, she found Kieran in the medical wing, being treated for minor injuries. You risked your life, she stated, dismissing the medical attendants with a gesture. Anyone would have. No. She sat beside him, her customary formality absent. Few humans would risk themselves for Luminari children. Perhaps you've been dealing with the wrong humans. Something changed in her expression then. A softening, a momentary glimpse behind the regal mask. Perhaps I have. That evening, instead of returning to his quarters, Kieran was invited to a small gathering of Luminari elders. As he entered the chamber, conversation halted. Nayara approached, taking his hand in public. An unprecedented gesture that sent whispers through the assembly. Ambassador Voss acted with courage today, she announced. He has earned our respect. Later, as they walked along a crystal balcony under twin moons, Nayara spoke softly. Tomorrow's trial will be different, more challenging than the others. I'm ready, he assured her. She studied him, conflict evident in her luminous eyes. I'm not certain that I am, she admitted, her voice barely audible as her fingers briefly, almost accidentally, brushed against his, sending an unexpected surge of energy between them that left both breathless and suddenly, dangerously aware of each other. Shattered protocol. The morning of the final trial arrived with a tense atmosphere throughout the Crystal Palace. Kieran sensed something had changed even before entering the chamber. Guards were doubled, and the Luminari officials he passed watched him with new wariness. Inside, Nayara waited alone, her usual advisors conspicuously absent. Is everything all right? Kieran asked. Today's test is different, she replied, her voice carefully controlled. It is the ultimate assessment of trust. The platform they stood upon began to glow, surrounding them in a sphere of privacy. Nayara's eyes met his directly. Last night, extremists from my council sabotaged the peace negotiations. They've sent falsified communications to your coalition, claiming we've rejected all terms and are preparing for renewed conflict. Kieran's expression hardened. Why would they? Some fear peace more than war, Ambassador. Change threatens their power. Her voice lowered. What I've just told you is the final test. Understanding dawned on him. You're lying to see how I'll react. Am I? Her face revealed nothing. Return to your ship. Tell your leaders what I've just disclosed. Your response will determine whether true negotiations can ever begin. The sphere dissolved, leaving Kieran alone with an impossible choice. In his quarters, he paced for hours, analyzing every nuance of their interaction. Was this deception or truth? His diplomatic training battled with the intuition he'd developed during their mental connections. Finally, he made his decision. When Kieran entered the Grand Council chamber that evening, the assembled Luminari fell silent. Nayara sat upon her crystalline throne, expression unreadable as he approached. Ambassador Voss, have you contacted your coalition? She asked formally. No. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. I've sent no messages, he continued, because regardless of whether your claim was true or false, acting without complete information would only escalate tensions. He climbed the steps toward her throne, an unprecedented breach of protocol that caused guards to step forward. If extremists exist, we should identify and isolate them together, Kieran stated. If this was a test, then understand this. True diplomacy requires trust to be earned, not simply tested. I cannot build peace alone, Nayara, nor can you. For the first time, he addressed her without title, closing the final steps between them. I need to know, was it truth or test? Both, she whispered, rising to meet him. The sabotage was real. Your test was how you would respond. Something shifted in her expression, vulnerability breaking through royal composure. As she reached to stop a guard approaching Kieran, their hands accidentally collided. The contact sent visible energy cascading between them, a brilliant aurora that filled the chamber with impossible light. Both gasped as emotions, memories, and sensations transferred in an instant of connection neither had experienced before. When the light faded, they stood transfixed, having glimpsed each other's true essence. The entire council had witnessed the phenomenon, a bonding that by ancient luminary tradition was considered sacred and irreversible. Nayara's advisor stepped forward, voice trembling.
Your Radiance, this human has compromised your energy signature.
By our laws. By our laws, Nayara interrupted, her gaze never leaving Kieran's. What has happened here transcends political concerns. Her voice strengthened. The negotiations will continue. But first, the ambassador and I require private counsel. As they exited together, whispers erupted behind them. Some outraged, some wondering if they had just witnessed the impossible beginning of a new era. Luminous Union 3 days had passed since the unexpected energy fusion in the council chamber. Kieran and Nayara stood on the highest terrace of the Crystal Palace, watching the sunrise transform the landscape into a kaleidoscope of color. The diplomatic teams from both sides waited in chambers below, but this moment belonged to them alone. The coalition representatives arrived today, Kieran said quietly. They're concerned about what happened. As is my council. Nayara's hand rested inches from his on the crystalline railing. Many believe I've been compromised, that our connection has clouded my judgment. Has it? Her luminescent eyes met his. It has changed me. The question is whether that change brings clarity or confusion. Since their touch, neither could deny the lingering connection between them. Thoughts occasionally transferring without intent, emotions resonating across space. The unprecedented bond had caused uproar among traditionalists on both sides. My scientific advisors have a theory, she continued. They believe humans and Luminari share an ancient genetic ancestry, explaining why our energies could merge. Does it matter how it happened? Kieran asked. What matters is what we do now. Nayara turned fully toward him. I've spent my life defending my people against human expansion. I never imagined I would find understanding with one of you, let alone... She hesitated. Let alone what we found, he finished for her. The tension between them had become nearly unbearable. Protocol and duty warring against the undeniable pull they felt toward each other. "There's something I need to show you before the negotiations," she said suddenly, leading him toward a hidden passage in the palace walls. They descended into the heart of the planet, where massive crystal formations pulsed with the living energy of Lumaris itself. At the center stood an ancient structure, predating both their civilizations. The first contact monument, Nayara explained. Our historians believed it recorded the arrival of the first luminary to this planet. She placed her hand on a control panel, illuminating ancient inscriptions. But after our connection, I began to see new meaning in these symbols. The holographic display activated, showing two distinct species, early humans and proto-luminari, working together to create something greater than either could alone. "We weren't always separate," Kieran whispered in astonishment. "No, it seems we were once partners who lost our way." Nayara's voice softened. "Perhaps what happened between us wasn't unprecedented at all. Perhaps it was remembrance." When they emerged, they faced the waiting diplomats with renewed purpose. The negotiations proceeded differently than anyone had anticipated, not as two species seeking compromise, but as long-separated parts of a greater whole rediscovering connection. That evening, as treaties took preliminary shape, Kieran found Nayara in her private gardens. "Your coalition has accepted the initial framework," she said. "It's more than I dared hope for." "Because it's genuine," he replied. "But there's still the matter of us." The unspoken question hung between them. What place could exist for an unprecedented bond between a human diplomat and a luminary queen? Nayara stepped closer, her luminescence brightening in the twilight. "My council has reminded me that I have a duty to my throne." Kieran nodded solemnly. "And I to Earth." "Yes." Her fingers finally deliberately reached for his. "But perhaps in fulfilling our duties differently than anyone expected, we serve our people best." As their hands joined, the now familiar energy cascade enveloped them, not in the shocking surge of their first touch, but in a warm, steady glow that illuminated the garden around them, physical manifestation of a bridge between worlds that had always been possible, but never before realized. "It won't be easy," Kieran whispered. "The most luminous paths rarely are," Nayara replied, her free hand rising to trace the contours of his face as the twin moons rose above them, witnesses to a union that would forever alter the course of both their worlds.